Can you give a little insight into, some of the things you might be talking about or some of the things you have on your mind that you're going to be contributing and bringing to this?
Well, there's a million things I'd like to talk about. Presentation on JFK and the secret financial history of the United States, and I don't even what's on Mars, what's on the moon. Keeping everybody aware of the transitional period we're in and all the things that are floating out there. What's really on Mars? I'm hoping that we are moving toward a shift in consciousness where everybody is more actually aware of what the world and the universe we live in really is, as opposed to what we've been manipulated into thinking it was. So I'm going to be talking about that stuff. The true history of the United States, the secret history of the United States is what I call it, which is, how we got into this situation financially that we're in and all of the things that were done to manipulate our history. Why the Civil War happened, why the Great Depression happened, why the invasion of Iraq had to happen, and all these things and how they're all connected to this globalist banker-controlled deep state that has been, ruining our planet for thousands of years. And it's time to get rid of them and move them out. And I'm just going to explain to you how did we get to this place where we're
Yeah.
now confronting this evil for the first time and really exposing it to the light. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Quantum Summit is sort of bringing so many minds together and so many people from different areas, whether they be governance or they be spirituality or science, technology. We're going to have all these people together at this event who bring with them their own personal experiences, and then collectively the way we're hoping to do it is have these panels of different topics so that there's this real shared information that goes back and forth.
Before we get started, folks, make sure you hit the pause button. Okay, go down below. There's a Rumble link. Go over to Rumble and follow us over there. QFS1776.com is without question the holy grail of what's to come. Okay, t-shirts, you got to get yourself decorated. This way people will ask you, what is XRP? What is the quantum financial system? What is this? What is that? And you send them where? To QFS1776.com, where they need to immerse themselves, because we're going to burn down this system down to the ground. And out of the ashes will rise the phoenix. There'll be nothing to go back to. Believe me when I tell you that. Also, our Telegram groups down below. If you want to learn what's coming and you're sort of a little scared, I understand. Believe me, I was there too at one point. And if you need more than $10,000 worth of XRP or $1 million worth of XRP, you come see me. Send me an email at QFS1776@gmail, and we'll get you as much as you want. Gold and silver. Welcome to CarminesGold.com. Don't waste not even a second looking. Cheaper prices just don't exist. How important is it for you to own gold and silver right now? What does it mean to me personally? There's an economy that's about to crash beyond what words can explain. In 5 words, I'm going to educate you on gold and silver. Are you ready? You need to own some. Simple.
Hey, Elisa V here. We all know that legal matters can be costly and stressful. Finding the right representation and dealing with high retainers and hourly bills adds up fast. But what if I told you there's a way to have legal insurance just like your health or car insurance? Legal Shield has leveled the playing field. From just $29.95 a month, you get access to lawyers for personal legal matters. From traffic tickets to real estate issues or trust matters, help is just a tap away on your phone. Call or text 516-493-1742 and use code ElisaLegal to start your journey to legal protection today. Hey guys, hello and welcome. My name is Elisa V. I'm one of your co-hosts here on the Mel Carmine Show, and today I'm joined by Mike Barra. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, it's great to be here again with you, Elisa.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So
Yeah.
anyway, we've got a really full agenda today. We're going to be talking about some of the excitement in the works for the Quantum Summit 2 in Cape Canaveral next month. And we're going to also take a little bit of a deep dive into what's happening right now, like this whole war on the deep state and what's been happening, particularly since Trump came back into office, visually, let's put it that way. So anyway, Mike, I'm so excited. You're going to be at the summit. This is going to be amazing.
I don't have my plane ticket yet, but yes, I will be there. So,
Okay. I just booked mine yesterday. So
okay. Well, come on, Mel. I mean, come on.
I know. So we're getting close. And I want to really just say something, like this thing keeps expanding. We just found out we have two amazing guests that are just going to come, speakers that Mel just brought on, and he's literally bringing new people on every day. And
Hmm.
these folks are just going to make this event so much more robust. I know, Mike, you're going to be a panelist and a speaker. I'm going to be there in an MC capacity. So I'm just stoked about this. So what can you give a little insight into, some of the things you might be talking about or some of the things you have on your mind that you're going to be contributing and bringing to this?
Well, there's a million things I'd like to talk about, but I'm not, we don't have time for me to do a presentation on JFK and the secret financial history of the United States and all those things. But I would love to talk about any of them. What's on Mars, what's on the moon. I'm going to probably in my presentation, whatever time I get, I'm gonna try to throw some of those things in, and just to keep everybody aware of the transitional period we're in and all the things that are floating out there. And like what's really on Mars. There's a picture of a square thing on Mars. It's a foundation of an old building, and it's a 10 or 15-year-old picture, and everybody was freaking out about it this week. And I'm like, really? I can show you way better stuff than that. So,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we are moving toward a shift in consciousness where everybody is more actually aware of what the world and the universe we live in really is, as opposed to what we've been manipulated into thinking it was. So I'm going to be talking about that stuff. And then I'm going to shift into kind of giving the presentation I know that Mel liked, which is, the true history of the United States, the secret history of the United States is what I call it, which is, how we got into this situation financially that we're in and all of the things that were done to manipulate our history. Why the Civil War happened, why the Great Depression happened, why the invasion of Iraq had to happen, and all these things and how they're all connected to this globalist banker-controlled deep state that has been, ruining our planet for thousands of years. And it's time to get rid of them and move them out. And I'm just going to explain to you how did we get to this place where we're
Yeah.
now confronting this evil for the first time and really exposing it to the light. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Yeah, and I like the show we did together a couple of weeks back. We
Hmm.
did do a deep dive. So for anybody who didn't see that show, Mike, you did an amazing job going through the
Thank you.
history, going all the way back to where we are now, and really tying a lot of those events together. They a lot of times we look at these things, right, in history, and they look like they're just events that just kind of happened, or they just popped up somehow, but actually you weaved a nice story about how all of this stuff is very related and how
Hmm.
one thing really kind of builds upon the other. And
Yep.
I think like a lot of what's going on too, like we've been seeing it, like myself as a light worker, a coach, this whole idea of how collectively we are starting to see a change, in the frequency, in the vibration. I mean, there's no question that people like you, myself, we are trying to educate and get people to get out of that mode of just listening to what they're told and to start using more of that God-given sense of our own intuition, and to follow that and to keep ourselves out of that fear, right? Because fear is kind of the thing that they've just kept us in for so long, and it's
Yeah.
able to control, and we are, part of our job, I believe, in the podcasting world, we are here to just allow people to maybe hear a different position on things that's backed up by a lot of fact, and let it kind of marinate and metabolize a little bit so that the next time we hear something, we're a little more critical and we're willing to trust that judgment. So I think that's just a really important role that we have. And the Quantum Summit is sort of bringing so many minds together and so many people from different areas, whether they be governance or they be spirituality or science, technology. We're going to have all these people together at this event who bring with them their own personal experiences, and then, collectively, the way we're hoping to do it is have these panels of different topics so that there's this real shared information that goes back and forth. So we're still formulating. These things are never like science with these events, and a lot of times you got to leave
Right.
yourself open to the possibility of running by the seat of your pants a little bit, because you
Mhm.
want to be able to have like that spontaneity and that organicness that we're hoping to have with this event. So I wanted to tell you that Mel just, advised me. I think he actually just put out a press release. I don't know if it hit, but I can tell you we have two really cool additions to the roster. So the first person we have is Representative Leo Biasucci of Arizona
Okay.
State Legislature. So
Hmm.
he sponsored several significant bills that have been signed into law, including, among others, the Second Amendment Firearm Freedom Act, establishing Arizona as a Second Amendment sanctuary state. And he also sponsored, which was signed into law, HB 2696, which essentially allows Arizona for the first time to arrest, prosecute, and sentence individuals involved in organized human smuggling operations. So that's huge. So he's going to
Yep.
be there. And then we also have the Honorable Mark Fincham, who's a state senator from Arizona. He's the executive director of the Election Fairness Institute. So every time I talk to Mel, like he's talking to someone new, he's adding, he's expanding, who's going to be there. So it's really exciting. And for anyone out there, who's considering and hasn't yet gotten their ticket, you've got to get this. I mean, we have 917 seats. It sounds like a lot, okay? But when you consider all the speakers and the people, the podcasters and the influencers that are going to be at this thing, and you consider their following, like we're starting to see a jump in ticket sales now. So you don't want to
Good.
wait. It's
Yeah.
because it's going to start blowing through. And then, the other thing that's so exciting is that you see, anybody who is a fan of any of the people who are going to be there, this is a wonderful opportunity to meet and greet your favorite podcaster, your truther. We're going to have
Buy
the
him a
gala,
drink.
have a drink
Yeah.
together, a dance. We're going to have karaoke. So, it's an opportunity to just relate to each other as people, and where a lot of the barriers will be down, and we could just kind of have that nice opportunity to get to know one another on a more human and personal level. So, any other thoughts you have on the summit?
Well, no, I'm just really excited about it. I mean, I think it's going to be great. I know several of the people that are speaking. I've met them before. It's going to be really interesting. There's at least one of them that it's going to be really interesting to talk to him again after about 10 years, and he's
Wow.
got an entirely new identity that he didn't have back when I knew him, and so that'll be really interesting. And also, I hope David Nino Rodriguez doesn't kick my ass because I've criticized him a few times here and there. So, I'm looking forward to just meeting and hanging with everybody and hearing, hopefully learning something I didn't know. That's really that's one of the good things you get out of this is because we all have our own areas of expertise, right? We have things that we talk about and things that are in our awareness, and sometimes there's stuff that you haven't heard of before that can provide context or provide underpinning, structural underpinning for your specific thing that you're into, and it'll be interesting to see if anybody there has anything that I can add to my arguments and add to my presentations and stuff. So I'm looking forward to just gaining some knowledge, and I know if Laura's there, we're going to have a few drinks. So we have a good time and meet the folks. It'll be great to meet some of the folks that
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
people that
I
come.
think yeah, and it's like it's very diverse too. Like even though we're all sort of patriots and we
Yeah,
we we share a lot of the I want to say the overall passion and love for our republic and for what's going on, we all come from slightly different perspectives, and that's kind of the
right.
beauty of it because we can all agree, but even in some of the disagreements, they're not so dividing. A lot, they're just a matter of the position you're standing at or the experience you had. And that's why I think it's going to be like you. I'm really looking forward to the learning.
Yeah.
If you could walk away with some more
Yeah,
shedding light
exactly.
and stuff. Yeah, so it's
Hmm.
gonna be great. So listen, let's jump in a little bit. I want to talk about, we've been a little over 2 weeks since President Trump's inauguration, right? I don't know about you, but it just feels like a shit show roller coaster ride, right? Every time you turn around, there's something. And speaking just from my perspective, I don't know if you'll feel the same way, but it's like we lived through the last 4 years, kind of in this this duality of kind of looking at what was going on sort of behind the scenes, right? To those of us who maybe, took the initiative to look behind the curtain a little more or listen to someone whose views, didn't match the narrative that we were watching on, or that people were seeing in the mainstream and
Hmm.
a lot of us have friends and family and coworkers that no matter what we said or how we positioned it, there was just no getting through to people to kind of open their eyes and their view a little bit to see things a little differently. So, we were all sort of what I would say frustrated, maybe an understatement, annoyed, just so done with everything. And now, in the last 2 weeks, even though we knew, right, following the law of war manual and understanding what the military was doing and continuity of government, and a lot of people like, let's say, Derek Johnson, who, shed light on what a lot of the things meant from a military standpoint, we are now seeing some of that in front of us, right? Finally,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
where our fellow
Yeah.
believers are now saying, "Oh, look at this and look at that." So, what do you say? I mean, we have executive orders. We've got, Pam Bondi, right? The new U.S. Attorney General. We've got the Department of Government Efficiency, right? We've got RFK out there, talking about a lot of things. We're looking already at certain bans on certain ingredients and different things that we've all been screaming about for years and years. Um, and I think one of the most exciting things, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this defunding of the USAID is probably one of the most significant things. What's your take on all that?
I think it's the most significant thing in the last 50 years politically in America is to expose the fraud, mismanagement, and corruption at USAID. I think it's incredible. I mean, we used to talk about foreign aid in these general terms. I didn't really realize there was a single organization that was kind of in charge of all that. And we see how corrupted they are. We see how they have been funding all of these left-wing organizations, including the media, including, influencers, social media influencers, including political action groups that otherwise wouldn't even exist. So the reality is that this entire left-wing demonic movement that we've been fighting for the last 50, 60, 70 years wouldn't really even exist if it wasn't for fraud and theft. And so the dismantling of that is, I think, crucial because it seems to me, I think we're going to find out so much about all these left-wing social influencers and everything and why these people hate us and hate the American people so much that you wouldn't think they're all being paid by this organization,
Yeah.
which is pretty much almost dismantled already. And I think they just need to continue to dismantle it. And if some federal judge comes in and says, "Oh no, you have to stop," what President Trump needs to do is say, "Your order is going to be ignored. You have no authority to do that. These are all under my executive powers," which they clearly are. And until the Supreme Court rules on it, we're ignoring your order, Judge. And by the way, if you try to interfere, I'll have you arrested and put in Gitmo until this case is settled. That's what he ought to do. I never really understood why Trump never faced down all these federal judges because there is a separation of powers. And
Yeah.
the Supreme Court, believe it or not, does not have the final authority on what's lawful and what isn't. It's supposed to be a balance between the executive, the congressional, and the judicial branch. So I expect there to be continued fights on this, but they are moving so swiftly, as you said, that, there's a meme out there right now, Trump is moving so fast that Democrats aren't even sure what they're supposed to be mad about today, right? So that's the key thing
Yeah.
is to just boom, 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 shock and awe is what I would call it. So, you get them in a thing where they're just like they're not able to respond because they don't have the resources and they can't move fast enough to respond. So, we have two big hurdles left to climb here, which is to get Robert F. Kennedy Jr. approved by the Senate and get him in office. and then we have to get Kash Patel at FBI, and then it's really game on. I mean, we've started the battle. This is like the D-Day landing, these first 2 weeks. Now we got to break out of the beachhead and sweep all the way across France and go right into the heart of the deep state. That's what we need to do next. And I think we're off to a great start. So they will try to use different roadblocks and lawfare to try to stop this. It just needs to be ignored. And if people get in the way, let's just arrest them and put them away somewhere and say, okay, we'll come back and deal with your claims in 2 years or in 4 years. Let's leave them in jail as long as they left the January 6ers in jail.
Yeah,
I'm ready for all that.
yeah, and I agree with you. And the other thing too is like I think also with the funding that was happening, with the US aid, I think they're also finding the connections between the chemtrails, that was.
Well, and there are bigger things than chemtrails. I personally
There,
think
there
chemtrails.
are, but I'm just saying just to look at, you're looking at one thing and how does it relate to the other? The point that I'm making is just
Right.
that something like that is connected to something over here that you would never
Yeah.
think. And that was really my point. It wasn't just about
Right.
like,
And we're also finding, there's somebody named Jeffrey Epstein who was being funded by U.S. aid and USAID is a CIA front company. So that means everybody wants to talk about, oh, Epstein works for Mossad. Trust me, there's also connections to CIA. CIA is behind so much of this stuff.
yeah.
So I think, we're getting what we're doing is we're getting the excuse that we need to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds, as President Kennedy talked about. So, I am just fascinated by all this. I'm pleased by it, and I'm hoping that we just relentlessly continue to pursue the enemy across the battlefield everywhere. And it's great to see. It's great to see and the American people are all behind it because this is what they voted for. This is what we voted for, is to do this. So here we are.
So to your point, even with the judges, it begs the question that anybody who's, up in arms or having a problem with this defunding, you have to
Hmm.
wonder, well, what side are they on? Because what's your argument for why this is a problem? Especially
Yeah,
when,
because it's an executive branch agency created through an executive order. Therefore, the president, they're saying, "Oh, you can't do this; it's illegal." I'm like, "Yeah, he can. It's an executive branch organization. He can terminate it with a stroke of a pen," which basically is what he's done, and he should specifically do that. Just say, this organization is completely cut off. It's defunded. I think they're going to do that to the Department of Education
oh,
today or tomorrow. That'll be another exciting thing that will happen, and just put an end to these things. And again, it's time to really go out and fight these guys. Go to war with this evil, corrupt deep state that has been violating our rights and running roughshod over the Constitution for decades and decades and exposing them all. And again, it's going to lead to everything. It's going to lead to all of the corrupt members of Congress that are getting kickbacks. There's records of this stuff.
yeah.
And every day something new comes out. Oh, Ben Stiller got paid $4 million by USAID. Oh, he's like, oh, I didn't get paid anything. Oh, really? Okay, well, just show us your bank accounts, because we have the paperwork that says you did get paid to go to a photo op with Zelensky. So, you see this stuff, and the thing, to your point, that I think is really interesting is that the more somebody hates Trump, the more they have to hide.
Yeah.
And I really, really want to know what's in some of these documents about people like Mitt Romney and people like Bono and how much did Bono and the Edge get paid to go to Ukraine and do a concert underground to try to get funding for this war? And I think a lot of reputations are about to be soiled, and a lot of people, they had their chance. They had their chance in the last 4 years to take the morally correct side. They
Yeah.
chose not to. So, I like the old Q post, no deals. I think at this point it's no deals. We're just going to go all the way through. So
So here's the
let's
thing.
go.
I happen to be of the opinion, okay, and have been over the course of the last 4 years, that so much of what plays out is already done. I feel that in many ways, um, these last 4 years, Trump and the military and the white hats were not necessarily just kind of hanging out. They were seriously doing stuff that we didn't see. Maybe we got little tidbits here and there for in the
Hmm.
truther community. But what's your take? Because I feel kind of, and I could go either way because we know there's information, there's disinformation, there's misinformation, and it's meant because when you're in war, that's what you do. You're not, I mean, Trump said that a long time ago.
Yeah.
He's not giving information, freely out there. It's a military operation. However, I do wonder how much of what we're seeing is already kind of done, if you will, and it's just a matter of now sort of flipping that switch because the public is able to see it. What's your thoughts about that? And I'm sure there's a mixed bag of it, but I feel like I think they were in more control in certain areas than we've been led to believe they were, and maybe we're just now seeing it because he's back, visually as the commander in chief.
I'd like to believe that, but it also frustrates me because I think a lot of people suffered needlessly then. If Trump was always really the commander in chief, for instance, why didn't we have that? Why didn't we see that? Why didn't some things get stopped? Why were people allowed to die? Why did we sit back while Syria's government was overthrown and replaced with an Islamic terror state? I'm no big fan of Bashar al-Assad, but he's a lot better than what we have now in Syria, just like the Shah was a lot better than what we have in Iran. So, again, these things are maybe above my pay grade, but they don't please me. They don't make a lot of sense to me if that's true.
Yeah.
I don't think they really had the power to move on this stuff until they got into office, but I'm sure they did have a plan of action. I'm sure there was a game plan, and no battle plan ever survives the first shot being fired, right? So things are moving at a very rapid pace, and it's like a real-time strategy game, right? Where it just everything is moving constantly, and you gotta deal with this, you gotta deal with that. So we'll
Well,
see. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that right now. I
yeah,
just
yeah.
want to get it done. I just want to strike swiftly while we can,
Yeah,
and move
I
on this.
agree. Although, we have to also consider that there were certain things that were going on behind the scenes that maybe in order to protect those operations, i.e., saving children and, doing that sort of thing, that I wouldn't necessarily want to be in the position to have to decide like who suffers and who doesn't, right? But when you're
Yeah.
doing operations, there's always something, especially when you're fighting such a big enemy. So, so like you said, it's hard to speculate. We can hope for the best. I think what we're seeing looks good. Now, let me just ask you. So now we're looking at the fact that Trump has said he wants to disclose, the JFK assassination in, documents
Files. Yeah.
and
Yep.
files, and ML, Martin Luther King and RFK Sr. Um, what are some of your thoughts on that? Because I know, like, we're not going to do a whole show on this now, but any weigh in on, some of the shock and awe that might be coming out if when those documents are.
Well, that's the thing. I'm frustrated we haven't seen them yet. I mean, it was announced over a week ago and nothing's happened. And nobody, I'm not seeing anything on my Twitter feed. Somebody at some point they're going to be released. They're going to say, go here. You're going to be able to go and start looking, and people are going to find things and they're going to be posting them and their commentaries. I know Jack Posobiec was really big on that. But my concern is that what we're going to get is a manipulated narrative on this. Now, I have been trying to grapple with why since 2017 has there been all this push on UFOs in Congress, in the mainstream media, on TV, on news outlets. They've been talking about UFOs lately. And my theory was that, okay, I think John F. Kennedy was killed because, I mean, there's lots of reasons he was killed,
Sure.
but the final straw was when he made an agreement to go to the moon with the Russians because there was ancient alien technology on the moon, and they were not going to let the Russians get their hands on ancient alien technology. So he had to go. That's why the assassination was so haphazard, and there were so many flaws and holes in it, and it's so easy to debunk the single bullet theory and all that stuff
Of course.
because it was a rushed job.
Yeah.
And while I look, so what I felt like is what's been going on is they're putting this idea of aliens out there because when these documents are released, the ones that Donald Trump decided to withhold for 4 years, and I think he knew he'd be back and forth, is because they need to get us ready for the idea that there's aliens out there,
Yeah.
or there have been, and they may have visited here before at the minimum. So that's what I think that's all about. Although they've got completely the wrong spokesman testifying in front of Congress about this issue. So there's that issue, that part of it. So that flips over then into the Kennedy document, because if Kennedy was knocked off because of the alien question, if that was at the bottom line, what's going on, then this was not a decision made by CIA. So my biggest concern is that right now CIA is the whipping boy, and they're going to be blamed for everything. Like the documents they release are going to point to CIA being behind it. This conspiracy did not originate with CIA. It may have originated with Alan Dulles, who was the director of CIA under Kennedy. But Alan Dulles did so in his capacity as MJ1, as the leader of a much deeper, darker organization called Majestic 12, or at least that's what we think it was called. Let's just say, for
And
the
we,
sake of argument,
yeah,
MJ.
and we also know that there was probably more than 12, right? You
Yeah.
know, like,
Well, there were 12 senior members on the
right.
board who made the decisions.
Yeah.
So there is a very strong documentary trace to that. I don't think any of that's going to be in what's released on the Kennedy document. But when you put the Kennedy documents together, that I hope we're going to get, there's already connections, but when we put them all together, I think that's the picture that's going to be put out there. Now, that's my theory. It's my pet theory. It's possible I'm wrong, but that doesn't happen very often, Elisa. So I don't think it's going to happen. So, when you look at it in that context, my concern is that this is going to be blamed at a lower level agency, which is CIA. CIA was involved. They were just the muscle. Okay. The decision was made by this larger committee that had to grapple with much bigger problems than simply America's national security. They had to deal with world security and how do we keep our entire planet from becoming exposed to this stuff. Because the biggest destabilizing concept that could be put out into the body politic in the 1960s would have been, well, there's aliens. That would have made people nuts. There's a whole NASA document about it, right? The Brookings Report. So, I believe that these people who we call the white hats, who I think are more gray hats than they are white hats, they are concerned about maintaining, that phrase again, continuity of government, right? They're afraid if they put out the truth that nobody will ever want any government or trust any government again. And there has to be, in their opinion, some sort of government in this country and on this planet. So they're walking a razor's edge, trying to put out enough, tell people more of the truth, to act against the evil ones, but also not tell them the entire truth. So what I think we're going to get is we're going to get a lot of the truth. I don't think we're going to get the whole truth. And there's still going to be up to people like you and me and Mel to say, wait a minute, that's not the whole picture. It's a subset of a much larger, richer, and scarier, broader picture that we need to talk about still. So that's how I see this going. And I'm encouraged by it, but I'm only cautiously optimistic that we're going to get close to the truth as to why President Kennedy was killed, because that's not as important as how. I think we pretty much know how. We have Lee Harvey Oswald in the sixth floor window of the school book depository and J.D. Tippit on the grassy knoll. And that's how they did it. That's not as big a deal as who gave the order and why did they, which is where the real truth is.
Yeah, exactly. And when you said before, about, then you have people, you have people like Kerry Cassidy and, these people who have been working with whistleblowers for so many years, and a lot of this information, I know they're frustrated at this because they want the whole truth out too. There's a lot of people, and then of course you have, you start getting into the alien agenda of things and
Mhm.
what happened in the 40s and during the Eisenhower years and all of that, right? All the work that Laura
Mhm.
Eisenhower's done. So it is a much bigger and messier picture, that
Right.
it's right, and a lot of domino effect, with what comes out. Now, any thoughts on when it comes to RFK and Martin Luther King, like any thoughts on what we might see coming out of those two classified
Well,
files?
I mean, the MLK files have been released, and they're not being talked about because he was a horrible person. He was a sexual deviant. He slept with young girls. He engaged in orgies. He was not a moral person. Let's put it that way. So we already have that stuff. Now, the RFK assassination, there's a lot of people that question that. And I have to think there might be something to that. Otherwise, why would Trump include it? Maybe he included that just because of RFK Jr. and he wanted, to have a full, complete investigation. But I don't have that many questions about the assassination of RFK Jr. And it does appear to me that Sirhan shot him 6 or 8 times. As many times, he had an revolver with 822. There are people that say, well, he walked up to him and he just started shooting him. And Kennedy then turned, and why are there shots in the back of the head? Well, because Kennedy turned away from him, and he just kept shooting and pulling the trigger before anybody could get to him. So, I there's all these things about, oh, well, there was a bullet hole here and one there, and there had to be two different gunmen, and I I just don't think that
But
doesn't
that's
impress me in terms
But
of an
that's still
argument
the
right now.
what. Like that's still the what. So there may be some unanswered why questions, right? And that's really, I think, what we're
He
looking to
does,
find out.
Sirhan does claim to have memory problems, and he claims, he's embracing all of these conspiracy theories because he wants to get out of jail, right?
Now, do
He's
you
been in
think that
jail
was
for 60 years.
do you think
So
that was like an MK Ultra kind of thing with him?
it could be. It could be, and we could be exposing that, but that doesn't excuse what he did. There's the
Yeah, well,
lady in the
that's a
polka
separate.
dot dress and all this other stuff. But I mean, it just does seem, yes, Sirhan could have been a CIA plant. He could have been involved with CIA. There's no doubt about that, or some other organization like that. Um, but I tend to think in terms of the mechanics that he just
It was straightforward.
it was straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll come to that conclusion and maybe all the speculation will stop after we get everything out.
Yeah. So I want to just jump back though, just for a second on Martin Luther King. Like, yes, any of us in this community have read a lot of those things and understand that he wasn't the moral,
The
person that we.
paragon that he claimed that
Yes.
people put, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a
So
false
the
god. Yeah.
right. So that leads to, in my opinion, um, why, was he set up to look like that, right? Like, was that a setup in and of itself, for
Yeah.
people to follow? And then aside from the, kind of the falling from grace, right? That would that happens with with people understanding that and losing that that looking up to him kind of thing. What do you think there's more political kinds of corruption that's part of that and why he was killed?
Maybe I tend to look at King as, I tend to think of him as being funded by left-wing organizations or groups like CIA. I have a feeling he was an asset of some fairly major players. Like, I don't know that it's CIA, but let's pretend it is.
Right.
And remember, FBI and CIA were fierce rivals at the time. So FBI's opinion of him is going to be different than CIA's. It was designed to sow division, to create division, so that we could then use that to um, create conflict between the races, which benefited the globalists. It benefits the people who wanted to
Of
bring down
course.
the United States. I mean, the reality is that most people were like, you know, a lot of this stuff really isn't fair and it's not right and so forth. And we were working it out on our own. And then they created this radical leftist movement. And, you know, again, LBJ famously said, I'll have those new news voting Democrat for the next 200 years
Yeah.
using welfare and all these different ways to basically
Yep, keep them
uh,
down.
imprison the black community in the United States and keep them at odds with true morality, right? And they've done everything they can, the government has, to undermine morality in the black community, which is interesting because for a long time, you know, that community was a more spiritual and Christian and followed
Absolutely.
those rules a lot longer than white America did, I think, in many ways. So I see him as a tool of division that is being used. And that's why they had to sort of deify him and keep the truth about who he really was from coming out because it gave them, you know, a patron saint that they could point to and they could keep this division and this fighting, the whole purpose of which is to undermine the traditional Christian, Judeo-Christian moral values of our country and the family unit, try to destroy those things. And you know, so that was part of a larger plan, is the way I look at that, at
Yeah.
King's persona that was created. And you know, I mean, most people know JFK was no saint, right? He you know, he cheated a lot. I saw a post on Instagram from Bernie Taupin, the lyricist for Elton John, right? Promoting a friend's book about the Kennedys, just talking about how immoral the Kennedys were. And, you know, I think it's basically a stab at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and what terrible people the Kennedys are.
Yeah.
Well, they aren't the best people in the world, but you know, JFK did a lot, was fighting a much bigger evil than him, right? You know, I mean, there's no question about that. So it's interesting how they get people convinced that, you know, this is such a big deal, this whole character issue. Like, but like, how can you attack the character of the Kennedys and not attack the character of Martin Luther King at the same time, who did everything they did, maybe even worse? Because we don't think we know all the things about the Kennedys. But you know, why did Marilyn Monroe get killed? And so we're just in a phase where the truth comes out and it's uncomfortable. You know, I've said this for since 2017 or 2016 when the election happened. When before Trump was even inaugurated, I said this and I've said it repeatedly and I'm going to stick to it. The good guys are not who you think they are, and the bad guys are not who you think they are. And we're in the process now of finding out that truth.
Yeah.
And so some of us are going to lose some of our heroes. I think we're all going to lose at least one hero in this process.
Oh yeah, and when you think of the kind of the unawakened out there still, their heroes
Hmm.
are even more extensive, let's say, than ours because we've already started to see a lot of what's going on behind, or, whether it's
Right.
Hollywood or the sports industry or anything like that. So, like, over time, we've sort of adapted to this, idea of what's going on. And it's painful, it's very painful. I think there's going to be, a lot of cognitive dissonance and, whenever your reality is shaken, whatever form that takes, it takes a while. And I do think, spiritually speaking, right, it's like we have the human side of us that's like, get this going, like, just get it out there, put out the truth. And I don't think we shouldn't, but there's also the compassion side that a lot of people are going to have a rough time with this, and we're going to kind of have to put that need to be vindicated aside to try to just, understand that they're going through something.
I'm
Now,
not. I'm
having
not. They should have figured it out a long time ago. I'm not. I'm
I
not. I'm
don't
not
I
pulling
don't
any
100,
punches.
and believe me,
I am
I'm
not.
angry. Like, I
Yeah.
get frustrated. I have stood up at, like, lunches and t like, just because I can't deal with it, and then I had to, like,
Mhm.
talk myself, down to but if I sit and I'm really kind of calm about it, I do think that for whatever reason, some of us have been enlightened a little bit more. Maybe that was our role in
You know, again,
incarnating.
I'm going to remind everybody that Caesar pardoned the Optimates, okay, the Optimates. He pardoned them after the Civil War. And a couple years later, they stabbed him 24 times and murdered him. So no, 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 I'm not. No, we can't. We look. They had 4 years. They could have been reasonable. They abused everything, and no, I'm not. I'm not going easy on people. I'm not sparing anybody's feelings. I'm not, Elisa.
Oh, I'm not
I
saying
don't
to
have
spare
any.
feelings. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that within, in a high vibrational way, we can't really carry like that hate and anger. We just have to let it be and let it happen. But I also don't know if
I don't see.
revenge,
I don't buy that because I
you
think
know,
it then no because it makes you weak.
how
It
does it
makes
make
you
you
weak.
weak?
This we are fighting evil here.
Yes,
We are not, this is not some political debate that we won. This is
right.
not a football game. This is the survival and the future of the human race. And we need to get these people like off this planet or
Agreed.
out,
100%.
somewhere
100%.
else, put them on a Sakhalin Island or something and let them all stay there that just won't see the light. And we have to be ruthless about that. I believe we have to be ruthless in the way we conduct these operations in the next few
Oh,
years.
the absolutely. I'm talking more about the friends and family and people in our inner circles where, if we have anybody left, which is a whole other
Well,
story.
I mean, look, I have a friend who, we were friends for 40 years at least since high school.
Yeah.
He's not very smart, and he married this woman, and they just hate Trump, and they voted for Democrats, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't be friends with you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're voting for people who are trying to destroy our country, and you're so fucking stupid you can't see
Yeah.
that they're trying to destroy everything you think you believe in. They're literally voting for the exact opposite of what he thinks he believes in. So I haven't spoken to him in 4 years, and I'm not going to. I'm
Yeah.
not going to unless he comes crawling back and says you were right all along. I'll say, okay, yeah, I was. Should have listened to me then. Who are you voting for next time? So
So let me ask you
I'm just
that leads
no
us
quarter.
like a little bit of a spiritual thing here because what is it that stands in the way? Like, in other words, you and I are the type of people that we're very opinionated, but the opinion is based on facts, research, and like 4,000 hours of
Right.
diving into stuff. It's not like a sound bite. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I have a soft spot for people that are in my life, older people who have been, manipulated by fear. They were afraid of the like when fear comes into it, and I can't have a meanness towards them. They're not necessarily on the other side where they were for in any way against Trump, but their awareness of what was really going on is what frustrated me. So now as a lot of these things come out, I think it's going to be like a slap in the face for them to go over that hump of saying, wow, how did I not see that? That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying about being gentle. I'm in no way talking about the crazies and the ones who are
Yeah.
there against. I was talking more about the people in our lives who just had a hard time seeing the big picture and we got frustrated with them. But when it comes to from a political standpoint, listen, you and I are on the same page. I cannot associate with people who don't understand what this fight is really about, who choose to bury their
Mm-hmm.
heads in the sand, those people who continue to vilify President Trump and what he's done and his positions on things, right? I can't tell you how many times in business people make a comment. Now, you have to decide, do I go down that with them or do I just kind of walk away because, right, you're part of it is tied to making money in your career, so you just say I'm
Yeah.
going to walk away. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. Those people were a detriment. And I, for one, cannot have close relationships, whatever that means, with people who don't understand the big picture. So I was
Well,
just, yeah, go ahead.
well, I'm just saying, again, it's not worth it to me. There's no place moving forward for those people in my life. Okay. Because they just, how are they going to become useful Americans ever again? I don't see how they can be.
Yeah.
I don't see how they can be. So no, I'm not making any excuse. Everybody had access to the same information we did. I tried to talk sense to these people and they didn't want to hear it. So moving
Yeah.
on, there's going to be other people in my life that I'm going to be more in alignment with. And I'm going to surround myself with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do
So,
believe at the end of the day, our collective vibration is gonna like overall be part of what's gonna help us to win this war, you know.
yeah.
And it's funny, I had a lunch with a friend, sweet person, she'd do anything for me. We just don't talk about politics because
Okay. Yeah.
we just she's a good person. She's there for me and I'm there for her. So we just keep it. But she was telling me a story about someone in her circle that was getting a divorce. And the reason that the other friends thought this was happening, you're going to love this, is because her husband discovered that she was MAGA. And I was like I couldn't even wrap my arms around that these people, now I don't think that's the reason they were getting divorced. It was a lot deeper than that. But the point is, the friends actually thought that that would have been a reason to, because they discovered. And then I'm thinking to myself, MAGA, make America great. How does anybody not agree
Not
with that?
support that. Yeah. How does anybody not support that? Well,
So
I mean, the liberal slogan, America was never great. That's what they say.
yeah,
America was never great. So they don't believe in the same thing we do. We do. They don't belong in this country. They
yeah,
literally
I agree with
don't belong. We just strip them of their citizenship, give them a couple $100,000, and say, "What country do you want to go to? Because you're never coming back here again." That's what I would do with all these people.
you.
So, I'm sorry. You're right. How are you against make America great again? Well, I'm sorry you got brainwashed, but you should have been smarter than that.
Yeah,
You should have listened to people that were trying to talk sense to you. So,
yeah.
okay.
But I do think,
I mean, look, it's being who I am and supporting who I've supported very publicly has cost me a lot in my career. There's a lot of TV work I could be doing that they won't let me do because the people in charge are all libtards. Okay. I mean, again, we got to get all these people out of these executive positions. I support moving against all the board members of YouTube. Why should we have mercy on those people?
yeah,
They tried to silence us. They violated our constitutional rights. They tried to force us.
100%.
They tried to force us. They were supportive of forcing us to take these poisons into our body during the whole COVID thing,
Yeah.
So no, I'm not like you. There'll be plenty of time for peace and light and love when everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I just don't have faith that everybody's going to be on, like that we're going to leave people behind and so be it. Because I mean, and it amazes me. I don't know if you experience this too. Like you could be talking about anything and somehow like people will have a dig about Trump. Like that has no relation. Like I was talking to someone, in my practice, I coach people going through divorce, and we were talking about very specific issues, and she's like,
Right.
"Well, my ex-husband is just like Trump." I was like, "Oh, in what way? Because what does that mean, right?
You
Is
mean
she
he's
going negative?
masculine?
Is she going negative or she's
Yeah.
going positive, right?"
You mean he likes
Like,
girls? Oh,
no,
okay. Yeah.
complete, and it was just a whole litany of insults, And then I
Mhm.
was at another event, a business event a couple of weeks ago, and again, we were actually talking about Impact Health, right? We're talking
Yeah.
about Impact
Right.
Health.
Great
And all of a
product, by the way.
sudden,
Pick it up.
it was all about how he just cannot understand how all these people voted for Trump. And I was like, and that's the thing, like I don't really want to get down in, in professional settings. I don't want to start cursing and yelling and telling someone that they're an asshole. So I just kind of take the Zen approach and
Oh,
back
see, I do.
change the subject. No, I was like, I didn't want to embarrass other people. Like it just in that certain settings, I won't do that. Other settings I will, but I just was thinking I will never, ever do business with this person. So like they just put a big X through them because it's
Yeah.
such a stupid thing to say. And how do
Yeah.
you know where I stand? Like what
Yeah.
kind of insult?
Well, they just assume that all the smart people think just like they do, right? So,
Wow, I
oh.
know.
As Richard Nixon once said it, liberals think only liberals are smart. So that's their biggest problem.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, well, listen. So what do you think? So let's just kind of bring this a little bit to a close. looking at where we are a little over 2 weeks after we spoke about some of the great things that were happening. I mean, we know, like, for
Yeah.
example, they just delayed Kash Patel's nomination, right? They got all this stuff, so we got to get past all that.
Well,
But
because they're trying to stop all that stuff because once those people are in place, then it's go for
game
everything.
over.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. So sorry.
So what do you see any, like, what some of the next things that, once we kind of get past this little area, getting these people in that we just spoke about, like, what do you see as sort of the next step after that? When you
Well,
see everything going then?
I look at this as, like I said, the D-Day metaphor. We've got the beachhead, we've hit the beaches, we're on there, we've got most of our stuff lined up. We got to finish getting all of our tanks and all of our troops on shore, and then we can break out through the hedgerows and run roughshod across, France. The way
So is
Patton.
that seeing what's going on in Gitmo? Is that all of a sudden seeing these people being held accountable? Like, do you
It's
think
actually moving against, like, USAID and shutting them down, like terminating the Department of Education. The actual doing of these things is what that's the actual that's the actual events that are happening. So things are actually finally happening. We've been talking about wanting to do these things, and we've taken little measures. There are no small measures here. These are big, bold moves designed to destroy these institutions, which is exactly not only what I predicted 14 years ago in my book, The Choice, which you should pick up,
Yeah.
but it's actually
I'll
also,
put it in the description box.
yeah, thank you. It's also the thing, it's also what we have to do to win the fight. And for the first time, we're finally going on the offensive, and that's what feels so good. Is you
Yeah.
don't win a war on the defensive. You have to win it on the offensive. And don't forget the 300, right? They didn't stop the Persians, they only delayed them, right? They didn't stop the Persians. So you got wars are won on the offensive, and we cannot mistake that this is a war for the soul of the human race, and we have to go out and fight for it. And that's what we're doing, and that's really encouraging. The next step is to get our all of our generals in place, and then we can really, really, really hit them hard. And we've taken some great first steps. So hitting them hard, what does it look like? It's exposing the corruption in Congress and removing the people. And then I think the nuclear weapon, our Hiroshima moment, is the election fraud. The 2020 election fraud, especially. There's a lot in 2018, 2020, 2022, and we stopped them in 2024. So that's the nuke that we have waiting in the arsenal. But we need to get everybody in place to really expose that and go for it. Because that's going to involve politicians, judges, county workers, sheriffs, all, we've
Top to
now
bottom.
exposed. Yeah, we've now exposed that the Soros, prosecutor and sheriff's fund was through USAID. So now that gives us the opportunity to go, okay, well, who received this money and what did they do and what criminal activities were they involved in? So once that all comes out, then we can start exposing those people. And I'm not in favor of a measured response. Let's go. Let's just launch the nukes now. Yeah, it's time. It's time. I've been waiting 8 years for this. This is what I hoped the first term would be like, but it wasn't. So here we are.
No, it's been slow. It's been a little painful, to say the least. So timing in the next, say, what do you think we're going to actually blow past the beach, over the next couple of months? You think spring is going to be the time? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, we're also looking at a potential financial shakeup here. So that will be a big move. That could happen any moment. I mean, literally, there are people telling me it's gonna start happening tonight, or this weekend. So, I mean, timing, yeah, I would think I, I would be surprised if we get to the quantum summit and we haven't made moves in a lot of these areas. I'm hoping by the time we get there that we're going to be talking about all this financial reset and this political reset. And oh, well, half of Congress just got arrested. We're going to have to have new elections. That's what I hope we're talking about in March.
Yeah.
May not quite happen along those lines, but yeah, I do think I do think we have to move before June. Take this first 6 months and just be hitting the ground running. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. No, this was great. And just want to put a little plug in that you, myself, Victoria Reynolds, and Mel are doing our Monday kind of weekly forecast. That's
Right.
FOURCAST. So we're going to
The
be joining you
forecast.
guys. Yeah. So we're going to be joining you guys once a week to kind of look at what's shaking and going on in the financial, the political, all these different areas, and do a little update each week. So we definitely look forward to comments. Please like and share if you enjoyed this. Mike, thank you so much once again for all of
Mhm.
your knowledge and research. I'm going to put The Choice, your book that you wrote, I'm going to put
Okay.
would people get that on Amazon? Is that where they can get it?
Actually, absolutely. Amazon.com. So
Okay. Okay. So
great place
I'll
to go
put a
buy it.
link for that. And this is great. So we've got less than a month, just about, right? Today's the 6th, so a couple of days more than a month to
Couple of
be.
days. Yeah, we're almost about a month out now. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So,
make your plane reservations. Don't forget.
okay. All
Got to get
right.
that done. All right, thanks again, and I'll see you next Monday.
All right. See you then.
All right, bye-bye. Hi, Elisa V here. Did you know that medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, accounting for 66.5% of bankruptcies? In fact, in 2022, 17% of adults with healthcare debt either declared bankruptcy or lost their homes due to it. We can all agree that the healthcare system is broken. Well, there is an alternative that I want to tell you about. It is impact health sharing, which Yahoo News is calling the disruptor in the $4.6 trillion healthcare system. With impact health sharing, you can choose the doctors, clinics, and naturopaths that you want with less restrictive guidelines. Medical bills are reduced to their fair market value, and premiums are 30 to 72% cheaper than competitors. Plus, Impact Health incentivizes healthy habits like supplements, gym visits, and therapy. Call 844-275-1056 and use the code MELCARMINE for a free quote today.